Good afternoon, and welcome to the Glendale Water and Power Commission meeting. Today is Monday, April 5th, 2021. Due to the evolving situation with the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, the Glendale Water and Power Commission meeting will be available to the public electronically. Due to social distancing requirements, the public will not be able to attend the meeting. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable, Charter Cable Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Streaming online, https://www.glendaleca.government/public-meeting-portal. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. That's 818-937-8100. Now the next item, which I believe is the roll call.
Yes. And before I proceed with the roll call, and for the record, Commissioner Deacon will not be participating in today's meeting. Commissioner Jasmadarian. Commissioner Blau.
Present.
Commissioner Peterson.
Present.
President Flanagan.
I'm present. The next item is Commissioner comments. Commissioner Lal, do you have any opening comments for this meeting?
Not today, but thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Commissioner Jasmadarian?
No comments. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Peterson?
No comments. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll just make a couple of comments. I had the opportunity last week to attend a council meeting and to present in front of council. As many of you know, and certainly all the staff of Commissioner at the water utility have been instrumental in this. But in July of 2019, the Water and Power, the council adopted GWP's Integrated Resource Plan. It also directed GWP at that time to develop a plan for goals and methods to achieve 100% clean energy by 2030, and to develop that plan 60 days before the council would be asked to consider buying the reciprocating internal combustion engines at the Grayson plant. So this plan is directed by council. And it's a fascinating read. It was alluded to in our last meeting. I've read it. It's about 40 pages. I think it's really, really well done. And so I presented just a few comments in front of council reflecting on the plan that I knew that some people would be disappointed. Doesn't suggest that we can easily get to 100% by 2030, but it does suggest that we can get to 89%. So I began my comment saying I've spent my career working with electric utilities. I started in 1984 at the New York Power Authority. And I must say, first off, as an industry, truly we have come a really long way to be talking about carbon neutrality as an industry. I reviewed the report, attended the briefing. I appreciate the report. It's very informative, and I encourage others to pick it up and to read it. And basically it says we can achieve 89% quite easily by 2030. And that's a remarkable accomplishment. That's well above the state's goal of at 2030 by being at 60%. That's above our own integrated resource plan that talked about getting to 77% by the year 2030. So in 1984, as a young strategic planner for a large electric utility serving Manhattan, I could never imagine anybody talking about 50%, 60%, 70%, 89% would just be unfathomable. That's 300,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide gases equivalent avoided. So it may not be 100%, but it's certainly huge. And I believe it is conservative. I believe the report's author at Ascend Analytics would say it's also conservative, not relying on emerging technologies. And I addressed my comments by saying, it seems to me that we need to ramp up all of our internal resources, everything that's within our borders. We need to double down on energy efficiency and demand response. We need more distributed solar, not just the virtual power plant, but also net metered solar and potentially feed-in tariff solar. We need lots of commercial solar. The report only called for 20 megawatts of commercial solar. I think we can do multiples of that. We might want to look at solar and storage configurations, much like the virtual power plant. We might want to look at fuel cells that can ultimately run on hydrogen or renewable natural gas and ultimately hydrogen, and microturbines. Vehicle to grids I talked about, and this is a fascinating new trend where all of our electric vehicles can be part of this whole solution to our internal electric utilities dilemma. So 100% by 2030, unlikely, but 89% realistic. That's pretty good. That's a huge step. So I salute GWP and staff for working with Ascend Analytics and bringing this report forward. And I thank you all just for the opportunity to share that perspective that, again, as an industry, we've come a really long way. And it's fascinating to see a relatively conservative report suggesting such magnificent numbers. Next item, please.
Yeah, we also have GWP comment.
GWP comment, excellent. Who's giving that?
I'm Senior Craig Keenan, Interim General Manager for the month of April. I had to unmute. I want to thank you for those comments because we're in support of all the green power and energy efficiency we can get. So thank you for that. I don't have any other comments other than that. And so we want to move on the agenda. That would be fine.
Next item on the agenda is 3 reports information, 3.8 customer service update.
So Tammy Vallier, our customer service administrator, will be providing the customer service update.
Can't hear you.
Tammy, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I wasn't muted. I don't know what happened. I think this thing automatically mutes you once in a while.
It does.
So I will start over. I'm Tammy Vallier, Customer Services Administrator, and I have 4 areas I want to cover with you today: customer protections, fiscal impact, customer assistance, and then I will review some of our customer service metrics and our performance in this remote work environment that we've been in. You could change the slide. So a quick review of the past year as it relates to our customer protections. In April of 2020, the governor issued an executive order suspending water disconnects for non-payment. That order was retroactive to March 4th of 2020. So anybody who had been disconnected from March 2020 to April, when the executive order was issued, had to be reconnected. We did have a few customers that we went ahead and we had to reconnect, so we complied with that order. And then on April 16th, the CPUC issued emergency customer protections, which expanded the no disconnect order to electric and gas. And they extended that protection through April 16th of 2021. Then this past February, that protection was extended to June 30th of this year. Now, we're not mandated under CPUC, but GWP has followed the guidelines since this all occurred. And many of our surrounding agencies in the region have also complied with these orders as well. So as of right now, as it stands, GWP will not be disconnecting customers for non-payment until June 30th of 2021. You can change the slide. Thank you. So we took some additional steps as well to help relieve customers' financial burden by suspending late fees. We also temporarily waived new service deposits. We applied customer deposits to anyone who had one on file. To date, that's been around $415,000 that we have applied to about 1,000 customers. Electric and water rate increases that were scheduled to go into effect July 1st were deferred until this July 1st. We extended payment deferral timeframes and made modifications to our system so we can offer to amortize arrearages. That actually just went live into our system last week. So we don't have any customers currently where we're doing that or amortizing the balance, but we plan to start offering that in the very near future. And of course, we're actively promoting all payment assistance programs we are aware of, and I'll go over some of those in just a few minutes. You can change the slide, Catalina. Thank you. So, of course, all of these protections have greatly helped our customers, but there is definitely financial impacts to GWP. These next two slides show our aging receivables. For electric, you can see that most of our revenue is current, but the percent of current receivables has decreased over time. During a typical year, you would normally see 94% of the revenue in the 0 to 30% range, which is our current recently billed block. And then you would see about 4% in the 31 to 60 day range, 2% in the 60 to 90 day range, and then another 2% in the over 91 day range. Those percentages for each block pretty much were unchanged month after month pre-COVID. And then from March 2020 until October of 2020, the current revenue had reduced from 94% to around the 80% range. And then this past December, you can see where it made a pretty significant decline in the current amount. Many multiple bills that customers were accumulating, and that is reflected in the 91 plus day percent. So we've gone to 94% in the 0 to 30 range, now to that being 61% and the over 91% 1 days, going from the 2% to 25%. You can change the slide. On the water side, we've seen a similar trend. Again, we typically see 94% in the current range as well, and just 2% with severe delinquency. Same trend as electric, a further dip in December, and the down to the 70% range, although not quite as much as electric, but still significant decline. So this is it. It's really not, great news. And we do know that at some point there will be a sunset provision to the shutoff order. But, it's not our intent to run out and disconnect 7,000 customers just because we can. So we are really working with our customers. We've updated our CSR scripting to make sure that our customer service reps are informing our customers of all the programs that are available. The CSURs are really showing great empathy with our customers, kind of, we're in this with you. But we're definitely encouraging them to pay what they can, to not build up balances, but mostly encouraging them to apply for programs that they normally would not. They would normally not qualify for, but their circumstances have changed and now they may qualify for them. This next slide represents the accounts that have balances over 60 days. And why are we focusing on this? Because during normal times, electric customers can be disconnected at 45 days, and water can be disconnected after they've been delinquent for 60 days. So under normal circumstances, all of these customers would potentially be eligible for disconnection. So if you look at the left, pie, that is all of the delinquent revenue. 56% is electric, 10% water, and then 34% for all of the other municipal services that appear on our bill. And then on the right side are our delinquent customers. So 90% of our customers are residential, 10% are commercial. If you were to look at that as revenue, it would be more like 65% of the revenue delinquent is residential and 35% commercial. As far as payment assistance programs, there are a lot of programs out there. Many have new and additional funding. This is a list of them, and the graphic is a brochure that was emailed to all of our customers that we have email addresses for. So the first one, GW Cares, this is a temporary program that provides one-time bill credits to residential and commercial customers impacted by COVID. To date, 15,450 customers have benefited from this program, and it is scheduled to close on April 16th. LIHEAP, which stands for Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, is a federally funded program that provides assistance to low-income households. An additional $49 million was allocated to California as part of the CARES Act for a total of $203 million for California residents. The third one, California COVID-19 Rent Relief, is a brand new state of California rental assistance program for Glendale residents and landlords. It provides rent reimbursement to landlords for unpaid rent between April 1st, 2020 and March 31st, 2021, and can pay for delinquent utility bills for the same period of time. And in this program, either the landlord or the tenant can initiate the application process. So $332 million is allocated for Los Angeles County. And this does not include the city of Los Angeles or the city of Long Beach. They received their own allotment of money because of their size. So this is a significant amount of money that is available to customers. It just opened on March 15th and will stay open until all of the funding has been spent. And applicants must apply directly to the state. They are only accepting applications online. And I have a slide coming up that'll give that information out for any of our customers that may be watching. Those are the three that are currently available and where additional funds were provided due to the pandemic. There's still other assistance though. Our regular programs, Glendale Care, which provides a $15 a month discount to GWP low-income customers, electric customers. The utility users tax exemption, which is 7% of the water and electric use on your bill if you qualify. It has an age and an income eligibility requirement. So that 7% would no longer appear on the bill. Helping Hand provides up to $150 emergency assistance. And then Catholic Charities, I don't believe there's a set amount that they provide, but they'll assist with utility bills and prescriptions and other essential needs that customers may have. And Salvation Army provides a bill assistance of up to $50 per household. We've been doing a lot of customer outreach, bill messaging. We continue to send our reminder notice. In our noticing, we have our regular bill, we have our reminder notice, and then we also have a final notice of disconnection. Since we're not disconnecting, we no longer are providing that notice, but the reminder notice still goes out, and that's basically, there's two reasons. We want to make sure that the customer is always aware of their balance, and also on that notice, we can let them know about any assistance. But a lot of these assistance programs require some type of bill documentation that the customer is delinquent. So we've continued to provide that to customers. And then on top of that, we have phone and web messaging. You know, we have information on our phone up front that we're not disconnecting. That's also on our webpage. All of the assistance programs are on our webpage. Social media, all of the newsletters, the city newsletter, GWP's newsletter, and Economic Development's newsletter. Email, the brochure that I showed you earlier, that was emailed out to all the customers, and then messaging on our envelopes. We have envelope snipes. And then this is just where customers can find out information. All of these are on our website. And I'm highlighting these three because they're pretty significant assistance programs. So Glendale Cares, Helping Hand, Glendale Care, that can be found at glendalewaterandpower.com. And they can apply right on our website. And then LIHEAP, you can apply at pacela.org. And California COVID-19 Rent Relief it's called housingiskey.com. And again, customers must apply online for that program. This is a list of some of our metrics. As you can see, we've pretty much remained consistent despite having less staff and also being 100% remote. We've also had an 8% increase in call volume and 116% increase in email requests. So with reduced staff and more customer contacts, we're doing very well. I really want to commend our staff. They've done just really an amazing job. They've been flexible. They're adjusting to their work environment. They have new equipment, new online tools and resources, and all of these new programs they have to be pretty thorough in. And they're also at the same time providing excellent customer service to our customers. You can go to the next slide. Unless there's anything in particular somebody wants to ask on those. Oh, okay. And then as far as our customer service staffing, this just shows our staffing levels over the past several years. You can see we primarily struggle with the turnover of our customer service representatives. We've just recently hired 5 new reps, which is great. And they just began their training. It's a 6-week in-classroom training followed by 4 months of practical training. And this is the first time it's been conducted remotely. And I think everybody was a little hesitant about how that was going to go, but it's going fantastic. We actually have found that the group is more engaged. There's not distractions. There's a lot of teamwork between them. We're really happy with how it's going. And it's going quicker than our normal training, new employee trainings would go. So that really concludes my update for you. I'm open to any questions you might have.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for a great presentation, and congrats to you and the team. Like you said, less staff, more calls, great stats. Thank you. Commissioner comments, Commissioner Lal, or questions, comments? Commissioner Lal?
Thank you very much for that presentation. Very relevant. People are definitely hurting and are deeply impacted by the COVID crisis. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. A few questions. For people who are behind on their payments, advise that they make partial payments. Like, for some people who are behind on their rent, they are making partial payments for their rent. So are you advising them to make partial payments if they're able to do so? Or, how are you advising them if they're able to make a small payment toward an outstanding balance? Are you noticing an uptick in the typical scam that we've seen for years and years with scammers calling and saying, oh, we're about to disconnect your service, pay us $100 or pay us whatever it is, and we'll keep your service on? That's been an ongoing issue, I know. So have you seen an uptick in that? And also, can you just confirm the website address, because I wasn't able to make that website work. It redirected me. Yeah, so that's to start with.
Sure. Okay. So on your first question, yes, it really depends on the customer as far as how we approach a payment arrangement. Sometimes the customer will just tell us, I haven't worked in a year. I have, no income. I can't pay anything. I'm not paying my rent. It really depends on the situation. I was on a meeting with CMUA talking with a lot of my counterparts, and we've seen the same thing they've seen. Is you have the customers that are really hurting, and then there is a segment of customers that are choosing not to pay, but they can pay. It may be a business that was not impacted by COVID. So we're trying. Everybody is really trying to figure out how to handle those. And one of the things we've been doing. And let me go back to your original question. Do we try and get them to pay something? Absolutely. That's always the first thing we try and get them to do. But if they can't, they can't. And there's nothing really we can do about it without being able to turn them off. But one of the things that we have been doing is if they have been making payment arrangement after payment arrangement for the past year, and they have not applied for any of these programs, not even the Glendale CARES program, then we will deny the payment extension, and we will say, apply for the program. And once you're approved, call back and we'll work out a payment extension for you. It doesn't mean that if they don't, we can turn them off because they don't necessarily have to call back and make a payment arrangement. We can't turn them off. But it's going to help us when we can turn off people to kind of decide who's going to go first. So if we see that we have people that have qualified and applied for every single program, those are probably going to be the ones that we offer to amortize the balance for. But if it's somebody who just does not apply for anything, probably because they didn't or they weren't impacted, then those are the ones we'll probably take a deeper dive and look at to see as far as disconnection. And then your second question, I've already forgot.
Talking about scams, are you seeing
scams
in the
yes.
phone calls?
Thank you for.
If you don't pay, we're going to disconnect you. It just seems like those scams are ongoing. They seem to come no matter the season or situation. But I thought this, it might be worse now, especially with people being home. We've
had 2 huge waves. Just huge waves with those, and both of them were right after the stay-at-home order. And it was nothing new. It wasn't unique. Everybody across the country has that same scam going on, and we do so much outreach. And if you call our telephone number right now, the first thing you're going to hear on the recording is warning people about that scam. And it definitely has an impact on our call center for sure. But as much as we have put that out into the public, it's amazing that, people are still fearful that it could be true. So yes, we've had 2 huge waves, and both of them were right after the stay-at-home order. And then finally, the website, do you know which program it was that you were referring to?
Power.com, was that it?
GlendaleWaterandPower.com? That's our website.
Glendale Water and Power.com. I don't have permission to go to the website.
Okay. That is, I promise that's the website. And then if anybody's listening that wants to apply for that, on the left-hand side, there's an actual heading for Glendale assistance programs or financial assistance programs. Financial assistance.
Except for me. Everyone else.
Except for you. We must have blocked you.
Blocked.
But you can, if for some reason anybody else is having a problem, you can go to the city website, to glendale.gov, and then go to departments, and then go into Glendale Water and Power as a department and get to the same place.
I think you referred to this in your comments earlier, but you're saying that when you speak to your colleagues in the utility world, you're seeing that they're similarly impacted. Their customers are similarly impacted in terms of late payments or missed payments. Is that correct?
Yes, and many are much worse than us. I don't have those statistics, but we've been involved in many surveys.
Okay.
We're not doing great for sure, but we are definitely a lot better than some of the others.
All right. Other commissioners? Commission President?
Thank you. Commissioner Jasmine, questions or comments?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson? You're on mute. You are on mute.
Okay, thank you. I really just wanted to say, Tammy, thank you very much. It was a very comprehensive and very clear presentation, and was very informative. 2 questions that came to mind. One is, all these programs, are they available only to residential or to businesses or other entities? And if there's some sort of cap or on size or type of entity it could be? I guess that's the first question. You did what I did. Have yourself on mute.
You're on mute, Tam.
I didn't mute myself. I promise. The Glendale Cares Bill Relief Program is open to both residential and commercial customers that have been impacted by COVID. LIHEAP is residential only. The California COVID-19 rent relief, that's residential, but landlords can apply also. So it really depends if you would, consider a landlord like some of the larger complexes, commercial, but it's basically for properties. And all of the rest are residential. So just the Glendale Cares Bill Relief.
Thank you. My second question was, obviously, this is financially impacting GWP. Is there, as part of the federal relief packages that are coming out, is there monies for municipalities like Glendale and for GWP to be able to help bridge? Because obviously, GWP can't continue to have revenues deferred from its customers. You have expenses that need to be met on an ongoing basis.
Yes. So again, on the residential side, LIHEAP was provided a big chunk of money due to COVID through the CARES Act. And then the California COVID-19 rent relief, that was also part of the package. And then there's rumors, I really don't have the details, that, and maybe Steve Nersessian, who's coming up, he might have it, but I believe in this latest package, there's going to be additional funds available as well. So I think there's going to be a lot more programs and funds available coming out.
Are any of those programs directly, what's helping GWP meet its financial obligations to itself? If you have revenues that are going down, but your expenses are constant, at some point, you have to either borrow, or are there reserves that you're tapping into?
I think this
Talk about
is
the health of GWP.
for somebody else.
Commissioner Peterson, yes, it could come out of reserves. There was recent federal legislation that we'll look into that. It's unclear right now whether we could directly benefit from it, but we'll be looking into that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Peterson, for those questions. And Tammy, I've got just a couple of comments.
Okay.
First off, I think it's great that munis, in this case, Glendale Water and Power, should voluntarily go with the CPUC. And and maybe Mr. Keenan knows better than I do. I don't know how often that happens, but I think it's fantastic that in this pandemic that we harmonized the state's policy. And then you mentioned you have a lot of numbers on those slides. Is it fair to say did you say that we have about 7,000 customers that are in arrears? Make it simplistic. Is that about right?
Yes.
You said that? Is that like over 30?
That would be eligible for disconnection.
Right. And then that's out of about 70,000 customers or something? How many do we have?
Around 89,000.
89. So we're somewhere in that 8 or 9% range that's in arrears. And then typically, as you said, that would be more like 5%?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I do have that here somewhere. So pre-COVID, just give me a minute if you would, because I
was trying to make it too simple. Yeah, 10% of our customers, that's about a doubling. But
yeah, I think you know what? I don't know where I have it, but it's far less than that.
It's far less than that.
Yeah, I want to say that in an average year, we disconnect about 4,000 customers. So that's on a yearly basis.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'd say maybe at any one time, maybe 2,000 would be eligible for disconnection in a month.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And then why are all these customer service reps so difficult to corral and to keep happy within the Glendale Water and Power family?
Yeah, well, we've had 2 waves of losing customer service reps to LADWP. We've lost 1 or 2 to Edison. Actually, I believe 2 to Edison. So
Are they graduating to a higher pay scale? Is that fundamentally what's happening?
yeah, it's a lateral move, but more money.
Okay, gotcha. And then one thing that you said, I was wondering about the timing of this, because it sounds like all of this relief extends through April or May, or it ends pretty soon. But then are we planning a rate increase? Did you say that we're planning an electric water rate increase on July 1st?
Yeah, it was deferred until this July 1st was deferred to this coming July 1st. And as far as what's going to happen with that, I'll let Craig speak to that.
Yeah.
If he knows.
I have no update on that at this time, but we did defer the rate increase from last July, and I have not heard anything about the rate increase plan for next July. So we'll let you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's never a good time for a rate increase, is there? Never a good time. But as people are just getting their back to work and back in gear, that's a consideration.
Sure.
Any other comments on this section of our updates? Hearing none, thank you very much, Tammy. And we have the next report, please.
The next item is 3B, legislative update.
So Steve Nartessian, our GWP Utility Manager, Administrative Services, will be presenting the legislative update.
Chair Commissioner, dear Commissioners, my name is Steve Narcissian, Utility Manager. I oversee different sections in water and power, one of them being legislative advocacy. Actually, this is our quarterly update, and usually my staff, Leo Zayan, does this presentation. Before I go over the slide, what I like to do is quickly go over what we have been doing last couple of months. We've been very busy in meetings. Historically, we would travel to Washington, Sacramento, but with the current pandemic, we have done meetings via Skype, Zoom. We have met with state legislative members and their staff, including Assembly Member Holden, Assembly Member Friedman, Senator Hertzberg, Senator Portantino. Back in January, and more recently in March, we have had meetings with federal legislative members and their staff, covering topics such as Glendale Energy Center update, biogas project update, of course, COVID-19 and the effect, the financial burden, Mylar Balloon. So it's been pretty tough in a sense of trying to get everything, our message across. We've been fortunate enough to be part of the CMUA and APPA to have those meetings, have our voices heard. With that, I'll go over the presentation. Here. All right. So first and foremost about the timing, today happens to be the first day that the legislature returns from spring break. Next calendar date is the April 30th. This is the last day for policy committee to hear fiscal bills, and then May 7th is the last day for policy committee to hear non-fiscal bills.
I'm sorry, Steve, we can't see your screen.
Yeah.
Oops. Let's see that. Let's share 1 second. Can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Kalina. Okay, so I went over the calendar. So April 5th, today they just come back. So a lot of the bills that I'll be bringing forward today, we're just watching them as we are aware that there may be a change. There'll probably be a change. and we'll certainly bring it back to you for your attention, direction, clarification, and we'll take it to City Council and of course to our city manager. But what we have chosen 10 bills, 6 of them energy bills and 4 of them water bills, and I'll go over them real quickly. Let me go to the screen. The first one, Assembly Bill 641, Transportation Electrification. This is establishing a transportation electrification plan. We are currently working on our EV plan, so we're working on that. I'm certainly bring it to you when it's ready. The second one, Assembly Bill 847, Assemblymember Quirk, electrically conductive balloons. This is prohibition of electrically conductive balloons. As you all are aware, we are ahead of the game in the city of Glendale. It's come to you in City Council. But this one will be to allow local control. A new form of this bill will be introduced later date. And again, we'll bring it to you. The third one on the list is the Senate, Senator Stern, SB 582, Climate Emergency Mitigation, Safe Restoration, and Just Resilience Act of 2021. Accelerating GHG targets as soon as possible, but no later than 2035. Again, as we speak, and I present this to you today, there's been a change already this morning. We'll be watching it closely, and as soon as they're ready to move from the first house, we'll bring it to you. So we'll have a better idea in our next presentation, and certainly will be provided. Next one on the list is the Assembly Bill 525, Energy Offshore Wind Generation, CEC study on offshore wind generations to set a goal of at least 10,000 megawatts installed by 2040. The next one is the Senate Bill 733, Senator Huesco, Energy Storage, Pump Storage, Hydraulic Generation Facilities, Pump Storage, CPUCs adopting appropriate targets. On both of this, what we want to do, we're watching closely to see statewide study is in need for offshore wind and statewide study is in need for pump storage. Our water, key water bills, we have chosen this for. The first two are our own Assembly Member Friedman. The first one is the product safety on juvenile products, prohibits the sale of juvenile products that contain PFAS substances. The second one is AB 1434, urban water use objective, indoor residential water use, establishing new indoor water usage by reducing current levels. Again, we're watching all of this closely in our chief water agent, Mr. DeGhetto. We had a meeting and he spoke with Ms. Friedman and we have been in contact. We'll see where this bill goes. The third on the list is the Senate Bill 222, Water Affordability Assistance Program. Water Affordability Assistance Program for low-income ratepayers experiencing economic hardship. As we have done historically, City of Glendale will be supporting such a measure. Again, we just want to see the final language on the bill. Last but not least, our Senator Portantino, Senate Bill 230, Constituents of Emerging Concern Program. A new program called the Constituents of Emerging Concern, CEC, to study CEC drinking and treated water sources. Scientific based, we're looking for, what they're looking for is a scientific based study to determine levels of constituents of emerging concerns in our water. These are the 10 bills we had selected. Of course, we're watching all the bills, and as they develop and move forward in the House, we'll bring it to you. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Steve. Commissioner Law, questions or comments?
Not at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Jasmadarian?
There we go. Other than the water affordability bill that Glendale is supporting, what other bills are being supported or opposed? Are there any at this time?
Commissioner, at this time, since their initial stage, the language we use, we're watching it. When we do oppose or support, you will be notified, and we'll be in conjunction with the SCAPA. So we'll be authoring or signing up on the letter. On some of these deals, because the language is not final, we're at that stage that we're watching at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Very good. Commissioner Peterson, questions, comments?
Oh, thank you very much for that informative presentation, Steve. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Commissioner.
Very good. I do not have any questions or comments. Thanks again for the presentation and for tracking these legislative developments. Next item, please. Oral communication.
Actually, it's one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Electric reliability report.
So this next item will be presented by Dan Scorza, GWP Chief Assistant General Manager, Electric. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, I have to share the screen. Hold on. And my name is Dan Scorza. I'm the Chief Assistant General Manager for Electric. And let me put up my presentation here.
Steve, can you stop sharing your screen? Thank you.
Let me see here. Oh, something happened. Oh, interesting. It's not letting me. Hold on. Be there. Kalina?
Do you want me to share the screen?
Yeah, something's going on here.
Can you stop sharing your screen? I'll share mine.
Okay, it's not giving me the option. Something happened. I don't see the. I'm sorry, let me. Ah. Share. Can you see my screen?
No, we can, but it's not the presentation.
Hey, Catalina?
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you show the screen and Dan can tell you when to shift the slides.
Dan, can you exit the sharing?
It's how come it's not showing it to me? Stop sharing. Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. So I wanted to share with you the electric reliability report for Glendale Water and Power for the last few years. I don't have the data for 2020. It stops at 2019. And let me share the data with you and some of the information that's on our presentation. Let's go to the next slide. So we're always looking at reliability, affordability, and sustainability for Glendale Water and Power customers. Sort of that's what our system's built upon. Next slide. So here's the indices that we track. One is the interruptions, the number of interruptions that we have. You notice the graph below. It talks a little bit about outages per year. And then the other one also has the length of the outage in minutes. So our goal is to shorten the length of outages, and the other one is the frequency of outages. Ideally, we want to have 0 on both. But in reality, there's a certain number that occurs because of the system that's out there, and there's stuff that we can't control in terms of incidences and things that get into our power system, equipment failures, weather-related issues. But our goal is to minimize the minutes in terms of outages, the length of outages, and then the frequency of outages. So we have a factor called SAFE, SAIDI, and CAIDI. CAIDI is the most important one because that kind of includes the length of duration of the interruption, and then the other one includes the information on interruption. So ultimately, CAIDI is probably the best indicator, and we call that the reliability triangle. CAIDI is on top. It is derived from the other two factors. Why don't we go on to the next slide? Okay, so here's the definition of each indices that are tracked: SAFE, SAIDI, and CAIDI. Let's go on to the next slide. So when we do this reliability indices, we kind of have to follow the rules so that we can compare apples to apples with other utilities. Interruptions that occur as a result of outages on customer-owned facilities, those are exempted. These are exclusions that we have. We follow IEEE standard 1366. So anything that's an outage related to customer-owned facilities, we don't count. Interruptions due to loss of supply from another utility. If a neighboring utility has an issue and it causes an outage in ours, we don't count that against the system because that was something we couldn't control. Major events, if it's 15%, greater than 15% of system facilities, or 10% of utility customers. Again, something major occurred, something that's beyond our control. It wasn't something that normally happens. There was something else going on that was much larger that would have affected the utility. So we don't count those. So we call those major events. And then outages less than 5 minutes duration. And you might say, well, why would you exempt 5 minutes? Well, in Glendale, we don't have automatic reclosures that wait 5 minutes, but in other places around the country, there's equipment that may wait that long before it re-energizes or attempts to re-energize equipment automatically. So that we're able to compare ourselves to every utility in the country, everybody agreed to that any outages less than 5 minutes is not considered an outage. And that's following standard IEEE standard 1366 and NERC standard in NERC standards in 1996. And then pre-planned interruptions, those are interruptions due to maintenance or we're upgrading equipment, replacing infrastructure. Again, those don't count as outages. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. So here's the numbers, the benchmark. This is SAFE. This is the system average interruption frequency index, how often it occurs. I kind of look at the numbers, you know, if it's 0.6, 0.96, 1.3, this is about 1 interruption per year in general, and we're approaching 1.45. Again, so if you were a customer and you were to ask us if we're comparing to the IOUs, here are some of the numbers. Again, it's a trend that we're seeing, and also what we're experiencing. So it's around 1 outage. Maybe 2019 we were approaching not quite 1.5, maybe 2. But again, outages are measured again by this factor, but it'll be clearer when we see the other factors. So this is SAFE, and it's It's the number of outages that's experienced by customer in that year. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. So SAIDI is the System Average Interruption Duration Index. Now we look at Edison, SDG&E, and PG&E again, and you notice GWP. Here the factors look not too bad for GWP. There's a slight increase as we're moving forward, and there's probably several factors, but we're taking measures to mitigate those. But one thing you see here is it shows what a municipal utility would behave like. The numbers are lower than the IOUs. And one of the reasons for that is that the complexity and the size of the utility. The larger the utility, the duration would be longer because you would have to get to your infrastructure and repair it. The larger the utility is, it takes a longer time to get to where the problem is and fix it. Notice municipalities can respond quicker because they're a smaller geographical area. So hence the numbers are lower for municipal utilities. So here you see our numbers to be lower compared to the large IOUs. Let's go on to the next slide. So Katie, this is the factor that really kind of takes away the number of customers. What it keeps is that it keeps the duration and frequency. Again, this is measured in minutes. So if a customer were to experience an outage at GWP, right now, the latest data says it would experience it. We were seeing about one and a half, let's say one outage. And that outage would be experienced about 50 minutes. So the outage you would experience in general, if I were looking at the data, I would tell you would experience one outage and it would last for about 50 minutes. That's what the data tells us. In some cases, it may be a little bit higher, but the mean, it's not the average. What you would actually experience, most customers, would be a 50-minute outage. One outage lasting 50 minutes. That would be to the extent of the outage that a customer would experience. This is what that data tells me. But notice in SCE, SDG&E, and PG&E, it's much longer. Again, they're more complex, larger utilities, a lot more geographic area to cover. So durations are longer. And then, the frequency, again, if something goes wrong, it's harder to get there to fix it. So here, this is again where municipal utilities do much better. So we'll go to the next comparison, next slide. So now here's looking at our neighbors. See, this is with Burbank, Anaheim, Pasadena, and LADWP. So what we were seeing is some of the numbers. If we look at Glendale, there's an increase in some areas. Again, this is the frequency, how often. Again, we were approaching about 1.5 outages per year. But again, unless we go above the 1.5, I wouldn't say that there were two. So about one outage per year or so. And then we took some measures because of those outages, and I'm going to show you where those outages were occurring and what measures we've taken to bring those numbers back down. So this is the frequency, how often it occurs. Let's go on to the next slide. So this is the duration index. Again, we went from 41 minutes to about 76 minutes. It seems high, but compared to LADWP, it's still lower. The other utilities, Burbank and Pasadena, are smaller utilities. So again, the response times, their geographic locations make a difference. How much vegetation there is around those locations. If you're undergrounded or overhead, again, it makes a difference. But our numbers measure fairly well with our neighbor, which is LADWP. Out of Burbank and Pasadena, we're a bigger utility. We have more customers. We have about 90,000 electric customers. I believe Burbank, Pasadena have in the order of 60 to 70,000 customers, electric customers. So again, we would experience 76 minutes of a duration system average. But let's go on to the next slide and we'll see how we compare it with Katy, which is the more realistic number. So in Katy, again, when we compare what you would experience if you were to experience that one outage would be 50 minutes long. And again, compared to Anaheim, Pasadena, LADWP, it would be shorter. Burbank has a better number. And again, it's the number of customers they have, their geographic location, their ability to respond to the interruption, and the measures they've taken to prevent the outages. So these are the statistics that we have. And so we benchmark against all of them to see where we are. And we had been noticing a slight increase. And then we've taken some measures in the last year or so, especially one of the measures we'll see in the next slide. But let's look at the causes. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So here's what was causing the outages. There's 336 in the last 5 years. These are the 336 events, and they're categorized by different events and categories. So balloons were 27%, and then I'll come back to the unknown. The next big one would be squirrels. So there's critters and getting into the lines. There's birds, for example, which is smaller. We've had some cable failures. We've had some palm fronds that have fallen into the line. We also have had trees, branches that fall into the transmission lines, and some of them, and the vast majority is to wind events. We've had several wind events where branches have been broken off trees, and then the wind has lifted them and dropped them on the distribution lines. So let's move forward. Next slide. Okay, so the biggest one we were talking about was the Mylar Balloon event. And I believe this is an active slide. This is what happens when a Mylar balloon falls onto a distribution line. Okay, so what this shows you, it shorts the line across. It becomes a conductor, and this would result in an outage. Something not shown here is that if there was a piece of equipment, such as the transformer that you see on the pole, and that was nearby, it could damage the transformer. So these Mylar balloons were a big cause of problems. So one of the things that we went and did was to pass a Mylar Balloon Ban, which the commission assisted us and worked on with Glendale staff and the city council, and said we were able to pass a Mylar Balloon Ban. What that does is that it mitigates the amount of Mylar balloons that would be present in Glendale that could cause these type of outages. So these were the vast majority. You would also notice, if we can go back, let me see, 2 slides. Okay, forward 1, I'm sorry. Yes, where it says unknown. When it says unknown, it just means that when our guys got and gals got there, they couldn't find the evidence of what caused the outage. It's normally balloons, squirrels, birds. It's just that we can't find the evidence because whatever was there was destroyed or fell in a place where you can't find it. So it's categorized as unknown. But I can tell you that the vast majorities were balloons, squirrels, wind events where something temporarily touches the line as it brushes by, and cause those outages. By mitigating the balloons and all the other events, those unknown factors go down as well. Let's move forward. Let's go to the Mylar balloon. Let's go right there. Yeah. So here, Mylar balloons were 27% of all the outages that occurred. Just last year, we had 12 outages caused by Mylar balloons. In the last 2-3 months, we've had at least, I remember, 6 events or so that were caused by Mylar balloons. But you tell me, Dan, didn't we just pass the Mylar Balloon Ban? Yes, but Burbank, Pasadena, LA don't have a Mylar Balloon Ban. So what happens, Mylar balloons that are released in Los Angeles and Burbank, Pasadena, in adjacent cities could end up in Glendale, and they do. And so we're still seeing some of them, but hopefully we'll see the data come down because we've stopped the local balloon problems. And what's happening because of our successful Mylar balloon that passed in October 13, 2020 ban, the other cities adjacent to us are also now looking at putting a ban on Mylar balloons that come filled with hydrogen or helium. In this case, helium is what's used, with helium, so that we would lessen the problems in the entire area. So the other utilities won't have issues as well. Okay, let's go ahead to the next slide. The other thing we had was tree trimming program. We have a staff of 2 line clearance forestry supervisors to oversee our contractor. Tree branches that are close to power lines, primary and secondaries, are trimmed. It's a cyclical thing for the city. We go in there. It's 1.5 to 2 years, depending on the rainfall and the growth and type of tree that we have. And you can see here is also we've become more aggressive. Tree trimming budget in 2021 is $1 million. In 21-22, it's 2.5 million. Again, this is so that we can address the wildfire issue that because of some of the climate change that we're seeing in the area because of the vegetation is drying out and some of the wind events. So we're a lot more aggressive. The cutting and clearances are done not just to minimum code, but sometimes we exceed and put more clearances to allow to not allow some of these events from occurring. But still, if the winds are high enough, branches will break off, and sometimes they do land on the electrical circuits. And then let's continue on. I'll show you another thing that we're doing. Okay, the famous 4 to 12 kV conversion program. Not only does this conversion program prepare us for the future, where we can put in more solar, rooftop solar and energy storage devices at homes, but these conversion programs also allows us to put in the wires at a much wider distance. So when we're going from 4 to 12 kV, we're increasing the voltage 3 times. And so what we're doing is on the poles, on the cross arms, we're putting the conductors on there much further apart. So now when branches and other vegetation break off, when they fall on the line, they just pass through and don't touch two of the conductors, because that's what you need to cause a fault. So by having the 4 to 12V conversion program, we're actually making the system a lot more robust and more forgiving in terms of faults due to vegetation. So better spread on phases on the cross arms, less chance of wire contact by forced by high-speed winds, and then harder for limbs to settle across overhead wires. And then we've increased the budget for feeder reconstruction, 21-22, as we're going in there from 4 to 12 kV conversion. We're also replacing aging infrastructure. So our poles, our cross arms, our insulators are being replaced so that we don't have equipment failure that may cause a feeder wire to break or to touch a tree or touch the ground. So these are some of the mitigation effects that, or mitigation efforts that we're putting in place to increase our reliability. So some of the numbers that we're seeing, we're expecting them to go down because of these efforts. Let's go on to the next slide. So cable replacement, cable failures were one of them. So we're conduit and identifying old cables. We're proactively replacing aging cables. So one of the benefits of undergrounding or putting cables underground is that it's protected from vegetation. But one of the other things it does is that when you have cables, the outage duration is much longer. If a cable fails, to repair it, you would have to pull the old cable out and then replace it with another cable, or if a splice breaks underground. Whereas if it's an overhead type of fault, it's very easy to replace. It sits above ground, it sits on the cross arms, it sits on the insulators, and repairs are done very quickly. But if it's a cable, it takes much longer to replace and repair. So outages, if you have underground cables, you won't have as many outages, but if an outage does occur, it takes much longer to repair. So we kind of have a balance. We're undergrounding where we can. We're replacing infrastructure. We're converting it from 4 to 12 kV, which introduces the greater distance. And in some cases, we're using something called tree wire, which is insulated overhead wire. Kind of gives you the benefit of both. It gives you the benefit of it being insulated, so in case something falls on it, it won't conduct, but it's easy to repair because it's above ground. The only thing that's a little bit tough is that when we put this tree wire on these power lines, they're heavier because they have a non-conductive shield on them, and it's insulated. The weight of them goes up. Therefore, in wind events or some other events, it's more likely that the pole or crossarm could fail and cause an outage. So again, there's always trade-offs, but we're doing the best balance we can. So our goal is to minimize the outage lengths by doing some of the things we've discussed here, by banning Mylar balloons with helium, by doing the 4 to 12 kV conversion so that we can have a reliable system that can take more power but has greater spacing. We're replacing aging infrastructure in terms of poles and crossarms. We're replacing aging infrastructure in terms of aging cable so that we don't get those failures. By doing that, we're also minimizing the outages per year. So the frequency is also being minimized. So our goal is to come back to that lower quadrant there. minimize the outages, and minimize the frequency of outages. Okay, next slide. So the equipment, we're also doing now inspections, enhanced inspections of our transmission distribution systems. And again, replacing aging infrastructure, something that we're looking at, not just the poles, cross arms, but also looking at transformers and other equipment and substations. And then we have an inspection program that we're working with the contractor to identify high-risk facilities, and then different factors in terms of identifying infrastructure to replace. And if you noticed that the big slide that we had some other things where we had equipment failures. Again, to minimize that, we're looking at the data. So we'll be working with our contractor to identify these higher risk facilities and equipment and replace them before failure could occur. Again, our goal is to minimize the outage minutes and then minimize the frequency. Next slide. Okay, so here's the questions for anybody in the commission to ask, and I hope this gave you some indication of some of the work we're doing at GWP to make sure our reliability stays high, and so that we can compare well to our neighbors and make sure the power stays on for our customers.
Well, thank you for that report, and thank you for keeping the power on for all of us that live in Glendale. Commissioner Lal, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time. I want to thank you for a very thorough report. Really appreciate the detail that you went into.
Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Jasmine, questions, comments?
No questions. Thank you for a very good report.
Commissioner Peterson, questions or comments?
I too want to echo my fellow commissioners and thank you, Dan, for a very comprehensive and thorough report. One question that, and you may have covered it and I missed it. When you do these, the SAFE and the SAIDI and so forth, do you only do these data and calculations on a district-wide basis, or do you also do them on a geographic or sectional basis? Because potentially, obviously, if you, on a district-wide basis, the number may look great, but if most of the failures are happening in one area or one portion of your system, then the people who live in that area may have a significantly different experience than what the district-wide number might be indicating.
Yeah, so now the numbers that I showed you are released to the CPUC. So CPUC gets the data from all the utilities in California. And if you go to their website, it's got these numbers in there. It's got all the statistics. So all utilities report this information in the fashion I showed. Now, how do we use that data? We look at our feeders. For example, okay, we have, let's say, 13 substations. We have 105 feeders. The 105 feeders are the wires that go out to the neighborhoods. They're either 4 kV or 12 kV. Around 48% are still 4 kV. Eventually, we want to make them 12 kV. What we do is, for example, every year we look at our equipment and distribution system to see where the outages are occurring. If we're seeing that loads are growing in certain feeders in neighborhoods, and transformers, for example, are failing because of heat wave, we go in there and replace those transformers. In some cases, what we do is add 2 or 3 transformers where only one existed. So with the data of the outages, which we don't show, regionally in those areas, we actually use the data to go and replace and make proactive changes of equipment to add more infrastructure. In some cases, we'll add a new feeder. so that we can feed a neighborhood if there was too much on one feeder. So we do exactly what you said. We do look at the data in areas and make changes to the infrastructure to make it more reliable. As we categorize those outages, we look to see what the causes were and then go in there and try to mitigate it. If it's vegetation, we'll go and hit it harder with more vegetation, more aggressive vegetation management. If it's over loaded transformers, we would then add transformers. In fact, last year, we changed 60 transformers out. We added more because we were seeing that they were aging or being overloaded. So we do preemptive changes in our infrastructure to make it more reliable.
Great. Thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense, and really appreciate the proactive nature and the customer-oriented nature that this clearly represents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. I was a little shocked that you're working off 2019 data, but I guess probably everybody's working off 2019 data. Was there anything unusual that happened in 2020 in terms of system reliability?
Well, you know, with COVID, people were at home, and I think people would have noticed more if there was neighborhood outages. It just meant more because people were working from home. Whereas before, you know, customers in businesses would have been the ones that would notice things because people would have been out doing things.
Yeah.
But again, the only issue is that maybe outages took longer because of the inefficiencies COVID added. People had to be protected when they had to go out there and work. When staff went out there to work, we didn't have the ability just to send people. They would have to be properly staffed and then report to a place and follow protocols. So the inefficiencies that COVID added may increase the outage duration, not necessarily the frequency. And we'll see. But all the mitigation efforts and proactive efforts that we're doing should be lowering the number of outages and also the duration of the outages. So we're very hopeful. But COVID did add inefficiencies.
Looks like you're muted.
Oh, okay. You can't.
Ted, I think you're muted.
Sorry, thank you, Joel. I was just saying you've really educated us about SAFE and SAIDI and CAIDI, and I was interested in all those exclusions, and I understand why you exclude so that you can benchmark with the other utilities. But is there another report that you generate that presents what actually happened? I mean, based on, you know, including major outages and less than 5-minute outages and issues that were caused by neighboring utilities? Do we track that also somehow?
So we do have internal reports that look at equipment issues, other outages. It's all tracked inside, but it has a lot more detail where it tells you what equipment failed, what location, some of the causes of it. But again, it's sort of like I don't want to say it's confidential, but it's internal information that we would use because it has the detail of how we operate, where it's located. That's not usually made public.
Yeah.
But these numbers are. But this is a good indication because this is how every utility compares to each other. Yeah. So it is measuring apples and apples and oranges and oranges. But we do have more detailed reports. And again, our capital spending program, our O&M programs have greater detail that we use to make sure that we're keeping the reliability high.
Right. Well, you're doing a great job. So thank you for that. And I don't know why. How could Burbank? Now you said that Burbank's got 60,000 customers. We have 90. But they're cleaning us. They're taking us to the mat here on that CAIDI index. And
Yeah.
I know that service territory pretty well. We all do. It's not that different, is it?
Well, I think that, yeah. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So the vegetation, I think, is one factor. Glendale has a lot more vegetation.
Yeah.
They have some more undergrounding per se. But again, it depends. That's why we have to look at the infrastructure. For example, Pasadena has a lot more covered conductor. They use that covered tree wire on overhead wires. Again, it's a balance. But I think what we're doing with addressing the issues with our Mylar Balloon Ban, looking at the 4 to 12 kV conversion, the greater distance that we have for our conductors, aggressive vegetation management should lower the numbers.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you again for the great report and educating us. And thanks to the whole team for keeping the power as reliable as it is here in Glendale. It's fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just add that there's a real missed opportunity here for our friends in the animation studios to make a movie about a squirrel and a crow that throw a party with Mylar balloons and then get caught up in a windstorm and go on a madcap adventure through Glendale's electrical system. It seems to be an open door. I don't claim the rights to it. Anybody who wants to take that and run with it over at the animation studios, be my guest.
If we were on April 1st, Dan could have talked about GWP's squirrel management program.
Yeah. And the squirrel ban. The squirrel ban. Yeah.
Actually, Commissioner Lowe, there was something when we were trying to work on the Mylar Balloon Ban, the Mylar Balloon lobbying effort. They kind of made fun of us. They said, well, you're going to ban the party balloons. What are you going to ban next? Squirrels? And so we're going, well,
Tempt us.
Yeah. So one of the things we could do for squirrels, though, is put animal guards. And we do that. We do put animal guards on our transition points. And then the use of these covered conductors would also protect animals as well. So there's a benefit there. And so we do look at what causes outages. If there's a lot of causes of outages due to squirrels or birds, we do put animal guards or convert to covered conductors. So we do look at it to protect the animals as well, because
I'm all in support of that. I'm not in the pocket of squirrel or anything like that, but I do support taking, any measures possible to reduce harm to wildlife and then corresponding impacts on service.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all. And shall we have the next item?
The next item is 4, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The general manager may refer the matter to the appropriate staff for investigation and report. We don't have any callers.
We have no oral communications.
We do not.
Okay, let's go to the next item, the agenda 4.
5, agenda forecast.
Okay. Do we have any commissioner comments on the agenda forecast? Are there items that we want to see coming up in particular? I know we talked about the reliability, the resilience last time with the crisis that happened with the grid in Texas, and I know Commissioner Jasmine Darian, you were kind of echoing my concerns on the electric side with concerns on the water side. Is that discussion calendared? Is that on our agenda? I believe it is.
Looks like it's for next month.
Yes,
Yes.
right.
emergency preparedness.
Okay. Are there other comments on the agenda? Anything else we want to make sure we cover? We discussed in today's meeting, we touched on that rate increase. I think that would be a useful agenda item in sometime in the next couple months to hear what the plan is on that. Can we put that on the agenda?
President Flanagan, this is Craig Keenan. We're doing a new COSA.
Yes.
So I would imagine we will bring something to you once we have that done.
And isn't that later this spring that's anticipated to be completed?
We hope to have some preliminary results in about a month.
Okay. And so Craig, that would precede a discussion of rates?
Yes.
Okay. So we want to make sure we have that COSA on our agenda forecast in May or June?
Let's, we can put it tentatively for June. I don't want to get ahead of the city council on this one, but we'll definitely bring it to you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other issues? Commissioner Law, Jasmine Darian, Peterson, any other staff comments? Hearing none, shall we go to the final agenda item?
Yes, item 6, adjournment.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move.
So moved. A second to adjourn?
I'll second.
All right, we are adjourned. Thanks so much for